is the issue of effectiveness. And one of the questions we received is there any research documenting the effectiveness of this kind of choice program on any basis other than the utilization by parents? Test scores, graduation rate, post-secondary pursuits. Are there any other documentation of effectiveness other than the fact that parents are wanting it?
Yes, and it's more difficult on the side with the children with exceptionalities. In my particular situation, if I'm not getting a year for a year with a dyslexic or LD child, I'm upset. On the other hand, if you had a developmentally delayed child that you moved to being able to take care of themselves, that would be a tremendous gain. So it is much more difficult to document. We personally can tell you that in our particular school where we take in, for instance, and one of them, we were talking up here a little bit earlier, one of the things that we found, and I have alarmingly found this over the years, is that there seems to be a pattern with of these children that we took into 20 kids the first year. Some of them were African American boys. And 75% of the African American boys who were LD and diagnosed in public school had services through the public school the whole time, did not have any skill levels. They were non-readers. And we see this pattern and have seen this pattern for years, and I'm concerned about the pattern of why we aren't addressing them, because we might have a Caucasian child who came out of the same public school who was the same age, and know they might be 3 years behind when we tested them, but they had some skill level. So that concerned me. Now, of those in our particular situation that we took in, they are all either back in public or private school at the grade level that they should be, or they've graduated and gone on to post-secondary. We can individually do it. It's very difficult when you get over to the private sector to try to qualify, and particularly in the LD field, whether or not you're making the gains. If I had a child that came in, they had the public school or another private school, for that instance. I come from private schools too that aren't making gains. I had made 3 months every year. Third grade had a first or 9-month level. And I bring that child in, and I'm making a year and a half gain with them. You've almost got to compare the individual. We're trying to get some of the research areas now to try to start trying to figure ways that we can document this without invading the, you can't just say, give me a number and give me a number. It's much more difficult to do. But we need some good outside researcher to come in and try to start quantifying what we are doing. And maybe you have some suggestions as to how we might do that. I mean, individual schools are doing this. And to be honest with you, the private school isn't doing it, they can't stay open. I mean, that's the bottom line. And it's quite different from public school in that regard. You aren't meeting the demands and needs, you just can't stay open. But that's not enough. We do need to come in. And you have to realize these are relatively new programs with a relatively new concept. When this was done in Florida, I believe we were the first ones in the United States to ever do this. And in all honesty, you've been funding private sector through kindergartens, through adult ed for years. So it's not a new concept, it's just that it's hitting folks in a different way. But we do need to have some really good hardcore research to come in and try to qualify, at least take a section like the LDs and look at them, or how can we do this? And we can prove it, and we need to. You're absolutely right. We need to get some explicit data on
it. As you pointed out, the most difficult thing about trying to assess the impact that trying to quantify the impact that these programs have had is their youth. Florida is the only program that's been in place long enough that we might be able to get some useful data for it. In contrast, Florida's program began in 1999. It was active for the 99-2000 school year. The next oldest program is Ohio, and it only started in 2004. And so when you're talking about children being eligible for these programs K through 12, and you only have 4 years, and you're dealing with a very small sample of students. In Ohio this year, they only have 950 children enrolled or taking part in the special needs program there. So really, in order to have useful data, you need probably 6-7 years at a minimum to start seeing, what happens to these children once they graduate. Where are they going once they graduate? What's the graduation rate going to look like? It just takes time for that kind of data to develop, which is tough when we're in a fast food, society, and we want information now. Sometimes we just have to wait and see how things develop. So that's really where we are right now as far as the evaluation of these special needs type programs. But really, I think one of the things that we can look to is the same things that public schools look at when they are currently looking to the private sector to reach some of these children. The public schools are making an evaluation of the effectiveness of these programs, which is why they continue to send children into private schools to have their special needs met. So I think that probably as far as a measurement of the effectiveness, that would probably be the best current measure is, why do certain public school districts continue to send their, some of their special needs children to various private providers?
I think that there is an interest in test scores. So many things nowadays are really being based on those bottom line test scores. And I think that we've gotten a little bit confused about how we need to assess our students with special needs. Now, we all took that fill in the dot test when we were in school year after year. You fill in the bubbles. For kids that qualify, there's something right now in the public school system called MAP A. And that's a portfolio system that will show progress that isn't based on a fill in the dot test. Now, it is less than 1% of students with special needs that qualify to be able to be in the MAP A section. We're talking about students who are possibly physically and mentally impaired. It would be ridiculous to sit and have them have to type out, I don't know, on every question for the 10th grade biology. That doesn't make sense. Therefore, there's a portfolio system in place that is able to document a child's progress that says, this is where they started at the beginning of the year, this is where they are now. I think one of the things in our discussion that I had with Dr. Hartman earlier is that she said that they have to report some type of gain on some type of test.